someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for the second time in the history of the world, we will discover fire. Several thousand years ago, in the last ice age, the world was a cold and dark place. And somehow, some villages, perhaps more like tribes, managed to survive the harshness of the cold and wintry world. And one day, in the midst of a storm, two members of a village took shelter in a cave. And as they backed into the cave, they bumped into some rocks, flint rocks. And when those rocks hit each other, there was a spark. And they picked them up and hit it again, and there was a spark again, and this spark caught on a little piece of dried wood, and there was fire. And they realized that they had come upon something phenomenal and went back to share it with their village. And sure enough, all the homes would have a fire. And whenever one fire would start to go out, they would take these two magic stones and strike them, and there would be fire again. And now how different the world was. The cold, dark nights were now given light and warmth. And the people rejoiced at this incredible blessing. Except for a few. Those who sold skins to keep people warm felt that their careers were jeopardized. The tribal leaders were jealous of the popularity of these two men. And the religious leaders were suspicious that how could such a great gift from the gods come through anyone but them? And so those three groups met and came up with a plan. And what they did was they declared those two stones to be gifts from the God, holy gifts, too holy to be touched by humans. And they placed those stones on the sacred altar and taught the people to bow before them, but would not allow anyone to touch them because those stones, they were holy, too holy for humans to touch. And slowly the fires dwindled until the world went back to the way they had known it before, dark and cold and wintry. The people thought, well, are the gods angry with us? And the religious leaders said they must be. Although everyone would say these people sure did have a devotion to those sacred stones. But the question remained, where was the fire? And that is exactly the question. Where is the fire? Last night, the Church Universal blessed fire. And in countless darkened churches, blessed fire was brought in on Easter candles. Is it not our temptation, as it was for those villagers, to take the fire that God put at the center of the universe and either ignore it or to praise it into impotence? We tend to like to honor the fire out there, to contain it, to name it, to tame it. And we much rather honor the fire out there than to do the harder work, which is to discover the fire in here. Easter tells us that there is a risen love that wants to burn in the hearts of every person. On Easter morning, fire leapt from the tomb into every leaf and every stone and every human heart. And I've met people in whom that fire burns, women and children and men who live noble and beautiful lives. I'll bet you have too. And when we meet them, does not something burn in our own hearts? Even as it did for those two disciples on the road to Emmaus, so crestfallen that they did not even recognize the presence of Jesus with them. But as he explained the scriptures, as he broke the bread with them, they said there was a burning in their hearts. My brothers and sisters, so must it be for us. Where's the fire? It's meant to be right here, burning in us. Because love is fire. On one level, we can't make the fire happen inside of us. Easter is always a gift. And I know that there are people today at this very Mass who have recently known great tragedy and heartache. And when we lose loved ones, or when we face the great losses of life, the world suddenly seems colder and darker. And try as we may, we can't make the fire come. But we don't have to. Easter will come if we stay true. Easter will come if we stay true. All of us here who have loved and lost bear witness to all of those who hurt this day, that if we stay true, the fire will burn anew. We can't make it happen, but Easter will come. To everyone, make no mistake about it. We are playing with fire here. And when you play with fire, you might get burned, huh? Because there is a dangerous quality to this fire. Because it will always involve some letting go. And there is a painful quality to this fire. Because it will burn out of us our selfishness and our arrogance. It's not a reckless, raging forest fire that damages all in its path. But this fire burns with a purpose. And its purpose is to bring the light of meaning. It is to melt the ice of isolation and bring the warmth of connection. And for all of us, Easter will not happen unless we are willing to let ourselves get burned. Easter will not happen unless we are willing to let ourselves get burned. If Easter is to be Easter, we must be people who are willing to burn again with love for God and love for God's people and love for all those especially who are vulnerable in any way this day. That is what burned in Jesus, that love. And I'll bet if I could have seen into the eyes of Jesus, you know what I would have seen? I would have seen fire there. And not some fireplace-contained gas fire. In the eyes of Jesus, I believe I would see raging fire, inferno, that fire of love that burned in him. And my brothers and sisters, what do people see in our eyes? Do people see fire in us? Can they tell that we burn for anything? Throughout the Easter season, you will see fire in our courtyard. Throughout the Easter season, There will be fire in our church. But there must be fire that burns through our lives. There must be fire that burns in here. All of this reminds me of the passage I read at the beginning from Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, a Jesuit priest and a scientist, who said, someday, after mastering the winds, the waves, the tides, and gravity, we shall harness for God the energies of love. And then, for the second time in the history of the world, we will discover fire. Nice ears, oh buddy. Easter, it's Easter. Well, you're right. So, Big Al, what's Easter all about? Candy. Candy, huh? I hear you. Well, Big Al, Easter's about much more than candy. Eggs. Big Al, you're talking about all kinds of stuff inside. You know what I think Big Easter's about? There's something that's got to be inside of you besides candy and eggs. There's got to be inside of you fire. Fire. Well, boys and girls, there has to be fire in our hearts. Oh, not a fire like this that you could use to roast marshmallows, but the fire of love. The fire of Jesus, and we count on you to show the world the light of Jesus, his fire burning in your hearts. Because when you love like Jesus did, you help show the world that Jesus is alive. Oh, he's coming too. Fire. Big Al. Fire in our hearts. The very fire of Jesus. Whoa! Idea. What's your idea? Okay, you can say that. Big Al wanted to say, go ahead. Happy Easter. We love you. He goes, Happy Easter. We do love you. You keep that flame burning here. Let's stand and pray.